I played Running Wild for my girlfriend, and she said, "Oh, that's pretty impressive." And then she says, "Now you know, Tatum was legally blind," and she turned the lights off and said, "Play it again." And I'm telling you, you realize first of all why he never ever played in C major. I mean, he always played in keys like E flat and B flat and G flat because he was in and out of the black keys and he could feel his way around. She shut off the lights and I was and I realized it's doable because it's very linear the way he wrote. I mean, you know, but I started doing more of this, you know. It's very interesting.
I see there's a young pianist, Marcus Roberts.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
I saw him on TV. When he was here, he played Rhapsody in Blue here. I'll notice him using some tactile.
Yeah, sure.
So he has to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You talked about this morning about finding what's within the music rather than imposing things or adding stuff. How do you, push the limits of what's in there and find out the richness without playing, taking a Lisztian approach to poems, which is somehow not right.
Yeah. Choosing how to apply an interpretation and how much interpretation you should be bringing to the music, first of all, depends on the individual composer and the piece. I mean, some composers like Beethoven and Debussy did write so many markings into the score, and they were so specific about things that one can argue that it's pretty much all there. But I think part of the important thing to realize is that musical notation as a system, which we use, and which all these composers have used, is very inexact. I mean, it basically, I think a composer like Schumann or Chopin wrote music using this clumsy system of notation, assuming that the performer understood exactly the implications of the word Polonaise or Mazurka or Ländler or something, and knew how to deal with that. I mean, so much of this music comes from dance forms, and we don't know anything about those dances anymore. I mean, it's out of our physical vocabulary, certainly, and so you kind of have to go back a little bit to that. I mean, and that's one thing to look at, and then some composers in some of their music invite you to be very personal. I mean, Schumann does. I mean, Schumann does invite you to be very personal in many cases, and so does Liszt, and in a very different way some other composers. But and then I think Brahms, maybe it's a little more. I mean, Brahms was this romantic composer, but he did not want to break free of classical structure at all. Whereas Schumann broke totally free of classical structure and all these character pieces and things. Schumann was not comfortable with sonata form, and so you work with all these things and you realize that. I mean, in the case of the Kreisleriana, the second piece, it's the character of the music. It's a very common problem in Schumann. You take a piece like the Schumann Fantasy, which has these. That whole opening, there's so much surging forward and just waves of sound and all this stuff, and his music often invites that. But in the slower movements, you have to be just very careful that doesn't end up coming out as a distortion of rhythm. Now, the thing is, someone like Horowitz played Schumann in an intensely personal way, sometimes with unbelievably distorted rhythm, but always still serving an expressive purpose that related to the music, and it was very personal, but it was always extraordinary and effective, and it was always a totally integrated and personal approach to Schumann. It wasn't inappropriate; it was perfectly appropriate to him. I mean, that he was a unique about everything he did. So you hear old recordings of Rubinstein playing Schumann, and what I'm always immediately aware of is just the warmth of the sound and the sort of gentle grace of the phrasing, and it is a very different approach. So I think they're all valid. But what I was getting at in the lesson today was that if the most beautiful thing about the music is the simplicity of it, then better to leave that and express that than do something which feels like you have actually added an interpretation to something. It shouldn't be that way. It should be something you're pulling out, and you know. But it's.
Whereas that approach take out press there and put I don't know what a nocturne.
Right. Yeah.
It's something that would work.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, but it depends a lot on the music. A Chopin ballade or a scherzo or something. You can really. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can build up a lot of effects and do a lot of things, and you can have the music serve a purpose that you've kind of decided works for the music, you know. But other music, you have to respect exactly what it is and be a little bit arm's length about it.
You know, you talked about this special moment at the end of the trill last night in the concert. Do you have special works that you find yourself gravitating towards, sort of intuitively, emotionally, having to like really music that?
I find, well, for example, I've found that Mozart I've never ever had to think about, which is why I find it very hard to teach, actually, because I don't make a lot of conscious decisions with Mozart. I feel completely at one with it and at ease, and I play it, and I enjoy it. Brahms requires a certain understanding of the bigness of its structure, and other than that, I've never felt like I had to overanalyze Brahms either. I feel like I just play it, and Schumann I find that I have to analyze. I mean, I have to be very careful about what I do because it's easy to fall into all the traps that I was noticing this morning. I mean, and I have to really stop and listen to what I'm doing and make sure that I feel right about it. Beethoven I analyze to death. I mean, I just get very caught up in exactly what it is that I want to do and how I want to say it. It depends, and I think different people have different things. One of the reasons I'm not comfortable with French music is that I probably analyze it too much because I don't quite feel like I understand what's happening, and I want to understand it, and by the time I've understood it, I've somehow overdone it, and then I can't relax with it in the right way anymore, you know. But I mean, having said that, I've had some wonderful experiences playing Chausson and other things, but it's a different style altogether. It's not one I'm not totally comfortable with. The Beethoven piano concertos, I feel at this point completely emotionally connected to and totally at one with all of them. And in fact, concerto playing in general, I mean, as just a style of playing. I've done a lot of concerto playing in the last several years, and it's turned out to be the bulk of my career, even though I still play a lot of recitals, and especially in Europe, and on Piano 6 tours, where we invent the demand for them on Piano 6 tours. In Europe, there still is a demand for piano recitals. In North America, it is not a lot, and I don't play that many recitals in North America anymore, or in the States. But and in the summers, I do have a chance to play a lot of chamber music, which I always find just completely recharges me for the rest of the year, because I'm working with colleagues and inspired by them, and pick up ideas from string players, and it's really great. There are certain things I've learned about concerto playing over the years, which I really get a kick out of. I realized that in some ways, concerto playing is I can have the best of all worlds, because I am working in a collaborative way with other musicians, which is something I get a tremendous thrill out of. A concerto involves a combination of collaborative musicianship with the musicians of the orchestra individually, as well as, of course, the conductor, and the piano is sort of presented in this great relief against the orchestra, and as well, and I just get such a kick out of it. I love it, and the style of writing for concertos is different. I mean, I think when composers write solo piano music, they are actually free to do anything they want. I mean, they can write anything from Berlioz to a 45-minute sonata, and but in a concerto, there's a basic expectation that you're dealing with about 35 minutes and 3 movements usually, or sometimes 4, and you're working within a certain structure, and you end up having a certain basic idea of climax and length and how things build up, and there are just a lot of a lot of perfect works out there. I think. I mean, like Rachmaninoff Second and Beethoven Third, and just concertos that say absolutely everything in the perfect ideal time frame. You know, it's just turned out to be somehow the right time span and the right way of dividing up different basic tempi, and it's wonderful. And then you write on a certain kind of scale because it is piano and orchestra. And Mozart never achieved in his piano sonatas quite what he achieved in his concertos. I mean, part of it is even just the vocal line and trading back and forth of ideas and things. Yeah, there's just it's not. His sonatas are absolutely beautiful, but the concerti are there's more there.
A little closer to the operas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.